Imagine a secret vault. This is not a vault for money or gold. This is a vault for something more important for our future. It holds a special metal. This metal is in your phone, your car, and the solar panels on rooftops. This metal is silver. But this is not the silver of jewelry. This is industrial silver. It is the hidden engine of the green revolution. For years, the world kept a huge stockpile of this silver. Nearly 950 million ounces. That is enough to make over 2 billion solar panels. This stockpile was stored in secure vaults in London and New York. It was the world's safety net. Factories and countries knew they could buy from this pile if they needed it. It kept the global market calm. Then, slowly, something strange began to happen. The silver in the vaults started to disappear. No one made a big announcement. There were no loud alarms. It was a silent heist. Month after month, year after year, the bars of silver were taken out. The total number in the vaults began to fall. It fell lower and lower. From 950 million ounces to 800 million, then to 700 million. Who was taking it? And why was no one talking about it? This is the story of a mystery. A mystery that touches every person on the planet. Because without this silver, our modern world slows down. The race to build electric cars, to power cities with solar energy, to make new computers, all of it needs this metal. The world was using its savings account, and someone was quietly draining it dry. The people who watched these vaults, the traders and analysts, began to whisper. They saw the numbers dropping. They called it the Great Withdrawal. Someone, somewhere, was taking delivery of enormous amounts of physical silver. They were not buying a paper contract. They were taking the actual bars. They wanted the real thing. Think of it like this. Imagine a giant community grain storehouse. Every family knows the grain is there for a bad season. One day, people notice the grain levels are going down fast. But no single family is seen taking huge amounts. The grain just vanishes. The community starts to get nervous. What if there is a famine coming? What if someone knows something they don't? That was the feeling in the global silver market. A deep, quiet nervousness. The key clue was in the delivery numbers. In the world of metals, you can bet on the price without ever touching the metal. That's called a paper contract. But to take delivery means you want the physical metal shipped to you. It means you need it, for real. And for years, the requests for physical delivery from the main vaults were going up. Way up. One country's name started to appear in reports more and more. China. China is the world's factory. It makes most of the world's solar panels. Solar panels use a huge amount of silver paste. China also makes more electric vehicles than any other country. These cars use silver in their electronics. China's hunger for silver is immense. But this was different. This wasn't just buying for today's factories. This was buying for tomorrow. This was stockpiling. They were building their own private vault, bar by bar, with silver from the world's public vault. And then, the vaults in London and New York hit a critical low. The safety net was almost gone. The world's backup supply was in the hands of one major player. The heist was almost complete. The 950 million ounces were nearly gone. The audience is left wondering, why would China do this? What do they know about the future that the rest of the world doesn't? Is this just about business, or is it about power? This sets the stage for a global drama. Because the story does not end with empty vaults. The real shock came next. After taking so much silver from the world, China did something even more bold. They slammed their own doors shut. We had a mystery. The world's silver vaults were being emptied. The heist was silent, but the numbers screamed the truth. Someone was building a mountain of silver, one bar at a time. The world's detectives in suits, the market analysts, had a prime suspect. The clues all pointed east. The logic was simple. Who needs more silver than anyone else on Earth? The world's factory. The kingdom of solar panels and electric cars, China. But here is where the story twists. Assuming it was only about industry is where the world made its first big mistake. This was not a simple shopping list. This was a master plan with two faces. The world saw the first face, the hungry manufacturer. They missed the second face entirely, the ghost in the machine. For decades, China played a different game. While the West focused on financial markets, stocks, bonds, digital money, China focused on something solid. The ground, the rocks, the physical stuff you can touch. They called it resource security. It is a boring term for a brilliant, quiet strategy. Own the ingredients of the future. Silver is the ultimate ingredient. It is not like oil. It is the new oil. You can run an economy on software, but you cannot build a solar panel with it. You cannot print a microchip. So China did two things at once, like a chess player moving two pieces with one hand. Move one, the public factory. They became the solar panel capital of the world. Every year, their factories sucked up more silver, over 20% of global supply. This was the public, obvious reason. The world saw this and nodded. They need it for production. It makes sense. Move two, the ghost. Behind the noisy factory, the ghost was working. This was the part of the plan hidden in plain sight. Through state-backed companies and careful long-term contracts, they didn't just buy silver for today. They redirected it. They took silver from the ground in other countries. They took silver from the world's trading hubs. And they sent it not straight to a factory, but into a growing network of secret, secure warehouses inside China itself. They were not just feeding the machine. They were building a second, hidden machine, a strategic reserve, a war chest for the 21st century. Think of it this way. Imagine a famous baker. Everyone sees him buy huge amounts of flour every day. He needs it for his famous bread, people say. What they don't see is the hidden warehouse he built next door. While he bakes today's bread with some flour, he is secretly storing the rest. He knows that one day, the price of flour will explode. Or worse, his rivals will not be able to get any. On that day, he will not just control the best bakery. He will control the very ingredient every other baker needs to survive. This is what China was doing. The ghost was their strategic stockpile. The world was watching the baker, but not his secret warehouse. The evidence was there. Reports from mining companies showed Chinese buyers willing to pay a little extra, but only if they could take physical delivery in Asia. Shipping routes showed more metal going into Chinese ports than ever before. The official numbers from their industries could not account for all the silver they were buying. The rest vanished into the ghost. By the time the London vaults were half empty, China had likely built one of the largest private stockpiles of silver in history. They were no longer just a player in the silver market. They had become the banker of the silver market. And this is the moment the game changed. When you are a customer, you follow the market's rules. When you become the banker, you make the rules. The world was about to learn the power of the ghost. Because the next move was not about taking more. It was about giving nothing back. The heist was complete. The vaults were bare. The ghost had everything it needed. Now, it was time to close the doors. What happens when the banker locks the vault and keeps all the silver for itself? For years, the world's relationship with China followed a simple, unspoken rule. China was the open door. Raw materials flowed in. Finished goods, solar panels, electronics, batteries, flowed out to the world. It was the engine of global trade. But what happens when that door suddenly slams shut? This was not a gradual slowdown. This was a policy, a decision, a deliberate act of economic power. While the world was still worrying about empty vaults in London, China made its second, devastating move. They turned their focus inward, to their own land. China is not just the world's biggest buyer of silver. It is also one of its biggest miners. For decades, they had dug up silver from their own soil and sold a large part of it on the global market. That stopped. New rules were announced. The goal was supply security for domestic strategic industries. In simple words, the silver from our ground stays in our country. Export licenses became much harder to get. Government guidance quietly told mining companies to prioritize sales to Chinese tech and green energy manufacturers. Overnight, millions of ounces of fresh silver supply that the global market counted on every year simply vanished from the international menu. Think of it like a town with one giant well. The town shares the water with travelers. One day, the owner of the well builds a high wall around it. He puts up a sign, "Water for my family only." The travelers are left in the desert, holding empty cups. This was China's wall. This was the true declaration of the Silver War. Taking the world's stored silver was the first shot. But cutting off their own supply? That was a full-scale economic blockade against the future of every other nation. The world felt the shock immediately. In trading offices from New York to Tokyo, a single, panic question spread. Where will the physical silver come from now? The price on a computer screen is one thing. It is just a number. The real panic is about the physical bar. The actual, tangible piece of metal you need to put inside a factory machine to make a product. The paper silver market, the bets and promises, started to tremble. Because everyone now knew the truth. The pile of real, available silver to back up those promises had just gotten much, much smaller. The dominoes began to fall. First domino, the solar panels. A factory in Germany making solar panels for Europe's energy transition gets a call. Their supplier says the cost of silver paste has doubled. Their production forecast for next year? Cut in half. Second domino, the auto giant. A major American car company planning its new line of electric vehicles faces delays. The specialized electronics that rely on silver are stuck in a supply chain with no silver. Third domino, the trickle-down. This isn't just about big companies. This is about the price of your next phone, your next car, the cost of installing solar on your roof. The green future for everyone just got more expensive and farther away. China's message was clear and brutal. We are not just competing with your industries. We now control the raw material your industries need to exist. They had moved from being the world's factory to being the world's gatekeeper. They held the keys, not just to their own vault, but to the very bridge that connects raw materials to finished technology. The global scramble was no longer a possibility. It was a terrifying reality. Every nation and corporation was now thrust into a desperate, high-stakes race against time. A race to find silver where there was none, to innovate before they ran out, and to secure any ounce they could find at any price. But how do you win a race when your biggest competitor owns the track? After the door slammed shut, the world entered a new phase. This was no longer a market. It was a scavenger hunt. The comfortable, predictable system was gone. The giant, reliable sources of silver, the London vaults, the exports from China, were locked away. What remained was a fractured, hidden landscape of silver. Finding it became a game of whispers, secret deals, and desperate overpayments. The first rule of a scavenger hunt: look where no one else is looking. The big mining countries, Mexico, Peru, Poland, became the center of global attention. Diplomats in suits landed in their capitals, not just to talk politics, but to talk rocks. Deals were made. Strategic partnerships were announced. These were not normal business deals. They were long-term contracts where a country like Germany or the United States promised to buy a mine's silver output for the next decade at a premium price, just to lock it down. It was prepaying for security. The second rule: dig through the trash. Urban mining became a serious business. This is the process of extracting silver from old electronics, medical equipment, and even jewelry. Recycling companies, once a small part of the industry, were suddenly flooded with investment and government grants. Smelters and refineries worked day and night, melting down the past to fuel the future. The message was clear: every single gram counted. The world's junk drawers and landfills were now strategic reserves. The third, and most chaotic, rule of the hunt: follow the shadows. This is where the story gets tense. When something is desperately needed and officially scarce, a shadow market appears. Unofficial channels. Brokers who know a guy who knows a guy. Silver began to move in ways that didn't show up on official reports. Was it coming from old Russian industrial stockpiles? From private hoards in the Middle East or Southeast Asia? No one could be sure. Prices in these back-channel deals were 20%, 30%, even 50% higher than the official price on the news. This was the pure price of panic. The scene was chaotic. A solar panel CEO in Texas was on the phone with a recycled metals dealer in Singapore. A French car manufacturer had teams in South America, not just buying ore, but directly investing in mining equipment to speed up production. It was every country, every company, for itself. This frantic global scramble had one immediate, painful result: the Great Divorce. The paper price of silver on financial screens and the physical price you actually paid to get a bar in your hand split apart. They divorced. The number on Bloomberg terminal became almost meaningless for a factory manager. His reality was the secret bid he had to make to get a shipment next quarter. The real cost of silver was now a confidential number, a stressful secret held by procurement officers losing sleep. This wasn't just about money. It was about time. You couldn't just click buy anymore. You had to wait. Production lines slowed. Grand projects for new battery factories or solar farms were suddenly under review. The green energy timeline for the whole world hit the pause button. The scavenger hunt revealed a brutal truth. The global system was fragile. It was built on the assumption that materials would always flow. China's move shattered that assumption. But in every crisis, there is a spark of something new. While scavengers dug through the earth and the trash, a different group of people started asking a dangerous, exciting question. What if we don't need it at all? The hunt for silver was leading to a hunt for something even more valuable, a way out. The endgame of this war would not be decided just in mines or vaults, but in quiet laboratories and on startup whiteboards. The race was on to make the metal that started this war obsolete. The hunt is over. The scavengers are tired. The price of physical silver is untethered from reality, a ghost of its own. But in the silence after the chaos, a more important question is being whispered in laboratories and boardrooms from Silicon Valley to Seoul. The real endgame of the Silver War was never about finding more silver. It is about making silver history. For 50 years, silver was the unchallenged king of conductivity. It was the perfect, irreplaceable ingredient. But perfect and irreplaceable are just challenges to a scientist facing an economic blockade. China's power move did not just create a supply crisis. It created the single greatest incentive for innovation the tech world has ever seen. The race is no longer to find silver. The race is to kill the king. In Japan, material scientists have already created a conductive paste for solar panels that uses a copper-nickel alloy. Its efficiency is 97% of silver's, but its cost is a fraction. The prototype is ready. In California, a startup is perfecting graphene-based circuits. This wonder material, just 1 atom thick, could make the silver traces in our electronics obsolete. In Germany, auto engineers are redesigning the electrical systems of next-generation EVs, aiming to bypass silver-heavy components entirely. China's strategy has triggered its own worst nightmare. By weaponizing supply, they have made the entire world desperately want to delete the need for the weapon. This is the final, ironic twist. The nation that sought to control the future by hoarding its key ingredient may have instead accelerated a future where that ingredient no longer matters. They built a fortress around a treasure chest, only to inspire everyone outside to invent a new form of money. So what does this mean for you? This is not just a story about a metal. It is the ultimate case study in 21st century power. It shows that true control no longer lies just in owning resources, but in controlling the knowledge and the alternatives. The next superpower will not be the one with the biggest stockpile, but the one that writes the recipe for what comes next. For the investor, watch the patent filings, not just the mining reports. For the student, study material science. For everyone, understand this. The most powerful moves in our world are no longer invasions or treaties. They are quiet decisions in vaults that spark silent revolutions in labs. The 950-ounce silver war may be remembered not for who won the silver, but for who made it obsolete. The war ends not with a bang, but with a better idea.